The other day I talked about some of the struggles that I've been having with content creation and just myself in general and how I approach making videos. Needless to say, I got a ton of support from all of you and I appreciate that immensely. It's not to say that I'm 100%, but I'm going to be taking it one step at a time. It was very nice and eye-opening and I'm very thankful for all of the beautiful, kind and supportive comments that all of you left behind. It means the world to me. I do not take it for granted whatsoever. It's kind of the first time I've been very open and personal here on the channel, and I hope moving forward that I'm able to bring a little bit more of my own personality instead of just sticking to strict analytical stuff. Does that make sense? To everyone that reached out, everyone that left a comment or just viewed the video, whatever it may be, I cannot thank you enough. A lot of words that I've taken into consideration, just how I think about myself and content making, etc. But regardless, thank you wholeheartedly. I thought it would be rather fitting to kick things off, trying to strip away a lot of this garbage and nonsense that I've done for my channel and just take it back to basics, and the best place to start would be with Chainsaw Man. Especially with this chapter, it's very timely, there's a lot of great things to talk about, and overall just a really solid experience. For me, if I were to rate it like a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, not to say that it's perfect, but the overall enjoyment factor, the amount of information you get, and honestly, the conclusion. This feels like the end of the opening for Chainsaw Man Part 2. If you were to break it up into like stages or arcs, stage 1 is now complete and we're shifting over to stage 2. Now we got a ton of reveals. We got Naruto, we got Fami, we got Fall, we got this worm, we got a little bit more of Nostradamus' prophecy, even Yoru and Asa. Now finally we can paint a much clearer picture, for the most part, for where the future is going. Nostradamus' prophecy is going to be the main staple or conflict for this story. And with this big thing, and I've talked about it a lot before, but just to quickly reiterate, we're expecting a pretty big terror. A big fella may come in, or maybe a big event may happen, and completely overthrow the human world, and bring in what is known as the Age of Devils. Sounds exciting, right? Well, not for Fami. Fami is inherently against this, does not want to do this whatsoever. Now, if you were to guess the reasoning why Fami doesn't want this to happen, what would you think it to be? I guarantee all of your guesses are most likely wrong. Mine were too. In typical Fujimoto fashion, Fami's reasoning is as simple as food. She loves all of the human cuisine that is created, and she doesn't want the human population to go extinct because of this prophecy, because she won't be able to eat food. Personal, simple, very relatable to the horseman that she is, being famine. It makes a lot of sense and fits perfectly up Fujimoto's alley. So I'm sitting here loving the betrayal of her character, thinking how much more can we get from her, because she is the one orchestrating this event with Fall and this worm. Turns out it's not as complicated as we originally thought. See, I was running along this idea that this worm would be a part of Nostradamus' prophecy, that maybe Fami was the one in control. She definitely is, but the opposite way. This worm was only meant to capture Yoru. It has nothing to do with Asa. And the reason that this worm wants to capture Yoru is so that she can starve her. Now you probably have a lot of questions. What is the point of this? It is briefly explained to us that Fami has the ability to control devils, use them as tools or weapons, and all she has to do is starve them. Why, you ask? Well, Fami thinks that War is the only person to be able to stop Nostradamus' prophecy. We don't have an answer for that. We can speculate, most definitely. There's a lot of ideas probably rushing through your head right now. There's a lot of ideas rushing through my head, but we don't really have enough to work on currently. Why War out of all people? Why not Control? Why not Pochita? Because we find out that Fall is a servant of Fami, which is genuinely really impressive, but at the same time completely throws any sort of power scaling or dynamics that you might have thought about out the window. Admittedly, Chainsaw Man isn't really a story that has a lot of consistent power balancing. It's not really the point. And I am a person that doesn't really care all too much about power scaling. If you like it, you like it. For me, it doesn't really bother me. But obviously, from what we've experienced, primordial fears are a force to be reckoned with. They're very powerful. Fall definitely seems scary, but never really showed the true power until here. For the first time, you actually get to see how destructive Fall is, because she gets upset. When this worm tries to devour Denji and Asa, it throws them back up, and you get this beautiful panel of her just raining destruction like this big gravity well on top of him and annihilates it completely. Honestly, rather impressive. Nothing that you should be surprised about. That is the true power, or at least a fraction of it. So it's surprising when Famine is the one controlling Fall. Famine, using her abilities, came across Fall starved her from food and was able to take control of her, which in the back of my mind sounds really weird when you piece it together like that. This is a primal fear, something that wouldn't easily allow people to get the upper hand on. But now I'm thinking maybe it's a quality versus quantity thing, experience versus power. See, the horsemen have experience, and a lot of it. With each iteration or length of time that they're alive, that experience can be very beneficial. We don't know how long Fami's been alive for. We don't know how much she's retained from being reborn, or if there's a way to bypass that potentially. They're actively getting in and out of danger, whereas primal fears don't really see that much action unless called upon. They can't just force themselves into the human dimension. Does that make sense? So maybe Fall hasn't really fought anyone before. Maybe that's why she's rather peaceful. Doesn't really have any hate or grudges against the human race or even devils. She just exists as a chef to cook up food. Now, I'm not going to say that I called the majority of this, but if you go back and watch some of my videos, I talk specifically about the horsemen and Fami having the ability to control people. They all have their own variation of it. It was an idea that I created based off Yoru originally, and then when Fami came into the picture, when we seen Yuko transform, I was wondering, Makima done it. Yoru can theoretically do it with nuclear warhead and other weapons that she would have obtained. Maybe Fami can do it too. I then boiled that down and applied that to her potentially manipulating and creating fake horsemen, but now that's a little bit more confusing. Why would a fake horseman come in and supply information to help Denji and Asa? Maybe it was on purpose. Maybe there's more of a reason to try and run that's more appealing for the worm. I don't really know. Nonetheless, it turned out to be pretty true. Fami's just a Pokemon trainer at this point, and every horseman, we can say now, has an ability that reflects their own to be able to control individuals as tools. Now you probably have a question, why did the worm throw up? Surely that's exactly what Fami wanted. Yeah, it wasn't her, it was Naruto. Finally, she's made her appearance on the battlefield, which I had my fingers crossed that it would eventually happen. When she was originally introduced back at Denji's apartment, that was kind of the biggest thing that I was hoping for, that when Denji goes to find something, she would trail behind, whether it be in secret or alongside Denji as a little miniature sidekick. Seeing the amount of power that she has to finesse this worm and change its brain structure to make it taste like literal garbage, that's why the worm spat them out, is the reason this all came to a conclusion this way. There's a ton of valuable dialogue between these two, and it's really funny because Control being a literal child and having this kind of flippant personality compared to the stoic, emotionless kind of void that is Fami. Yet the only time she really expresses emotion, if you could even call it that, the slight twinge of sadness maybe, is when she's talking about the disappearance of pizza and Chinese food and everything. I do find a lot of this kind of wholesome, that these sisters that haven't seen each other in quite a bit of time yet still, I guess instinctively, know that they are related to one another, still have such a genuine bond. The age discrepancy is kind of funny, and Fami doesn't really seem to have any concern to Pochita or Denji, specifically Chainsaw Man. So I'm curious about that too. The leading idea I had for her was that maybe she was obsessed with Chainsaw Man. Maybe she enjoyed him and didn't really want him to be a part of this problem. Yet she doesn't really care to even mention him. So I'm curious if there's something there that she's hiding away. Maybe she's a little bit shy, which would be a massive contrast in difference between characters. Almost like the anime and manga romance characteristic tropes. I can't remember what all of them are called, but I'll put them on the screen. Maybe she's just emotionless or shy. I don't really know. Kind of reaching into my bag for that one, just a sprinkle of extra flavor, but anything's possible with Fujimoto. Now this prophecy, as big, bad, and horrifying as it is, potentially war being the only thing that could stop it, which I'll lead you to a cool idea in a moment. Naruto doesn't want any part of it. She doesn't want to help Fami, and the reason is because she has school. And you get this adorable panel of her finally going to class, and originally I thought it was fake. I thought it was one of those, maybe she hasn't been to school yet and she's excited to go and that's how she thinks it would be, but it genuinely seems like she's going to school, she's learning, growing, evolving, etc., and she's having fun with it. Obviously this creates a lot of problems, right, because we just seen her control a worm, so her abilities are definitely in motion, but there is a chance that they don't really work the same way as Makima. That's just the baseline. We expect it. Already emotionally and mentally she's extremely different, almost the complete opposite, and this is because Denji's task, his goal, was to raise her a good way. You have to be proud of him. But I do wonder, however, if her abilities at school might create a point of conflict. And I do think Fujimoto might shift it in that direction. This is a really pivotal moment for Chainsaw Man's narrative, and the fact that we're even using Nayata as that starting point makes me believe that we're going to start seeing a whole lot more of her. Now lastly, what I wanted to connect was Yoru and the potential weapon that she could become, defeating Nostradamus' prophecy and the terror that it spawns. The way I see this working is most likely because the scale of the ability itself, how Yoru actually takes control of people, is overall scalable. So the power isn't consistent, it's how much guilt you feel. Do you remember this panel? I shouldn't say panel, but this piece of artwork that was released before Chainsaw Man Part 2 started? This will most likely happen now. I don't think it was drawn without reason. You could say it's just fun artwork, of course, but now I actually think that Denji will become a weapon of war. It would be funny if whatever these fake Chainsaw Mans are also turn out to be weapons for war. Funny enough, I just weirdly thought about this idea that maybe Famine created the fake horsemen for Yoru so that she would stop obsessing over Chainsaw Man specifically and potentially use these fake Chainsaw Men as bait. Because theoretically, if they are fakes and kind of genuine ones, which is weird to put those two words together, I know, they could still hold a lot of power if Yoru and Asa can build that guilt up. Kind of works, right? But I think with Pochita, you also get the ability of extinction or erasing one's whole identity. To me, if you want to get rid of Nostradamus' prophecy, it could be death, it could be a primal fear. At the moment, I'm just going to throw it out there because I've already talked about it. I think it's the fear of fears. And if you want to get rid of that big, bad, ugly, why not do it for good? If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe. It supports me a ton, so I'd greatly appreciate it. But thank you for sticking around and watching.